Welcome back. So it's been a few days again. I had a few interruptions to recording, but that is the way it is. So I want to continue in Genesis, and we just completed a very quick review of Genesis 1 and the order of creation, and just looking at some characteristics of Genesis 1. There are some things that I'd like us to consider before we get into Genesis 2, and I'm going to share my screen. So these are the things that I'd like us to consider. If you would, since this is this is supposed to be an interactive thing, if you would, go ahead and begin reading your Bibles at Genesis 2:4. You'll notice that Genesis 2:4 begins a new theme, which might seem odd because you're like, why didn't it begin in Genesis 2? Well, when scrolls are written down, we don't necessarily have verses and direct numbers to correlate with thoughts. So the redactors, the folks that put it down eventually in the canon, decided to put Genesis 2:4 as the beginning of a new thought rather than Genesis 2:1. You'll see that Genesis 2:1 is a continuation of Genesis 1. And then so to kind of correspond with that, as you read, how can you tell that Genesis 2:4 begins a new thought? What's the demarcation? How can you tell? As you read, and just read a few verses, you don't have to go and read all of Genesis 2 at this point. Genesis 2:3 is a continued story, but if you want to read all of Genesis 2, that is fine by me. What name is used for God? So there's a unique way that Genesis 2 and 3 refer to God. What is present when the story begins? So as it begins, if you can read through the lines and see what's actually present. Who is present in the story as it begins? And then as you go through Genesis 2, there's a difference between Genesis 1 and Genesis 2 and how, in this case, Genesis 2, Yahweh creates. How does Yahweh create in Genesis 2? What different images emerge for God, Yahweh, Elohim? How does this contrast with how Elohim created in Genesis 1? So there are a few study questions for you to try to discern, and I'd ask you to stop your videos here and pause and read those and then continue. So I'm hopeful you had time to read and reflect. So let's take a look here at Genesis 2:4. And so Genesis 2:4 starts, these are the generations of the heavens and the earth when they were created. And so that's an interjection there. There's another translation that says records. These are the records of the heavens and earth. And it begins, in the day that Yahweh made the earth and the heavens. Okay, so first of all, it seems like conception of time. We just had 7 days. Now we've got in the day. So it's not quite clear, if we're reflecting back on Genesis 1, which is hard not to. It's not quite clear a time frame, right? And you'll notice that your text says Lord God. Now, I just took some liberties and put in Yahweh because it's our YHWH. We actually are not 100% for sure that it's Yahweh. There's clues in the Hebrew language that the vowels, which are not present in YHWH, there's some clues there. It's also was against it's taboo to say the proper name of God, Yahweh, and so YHWH is what is written in the text, and I'll show what that looks like in Hebrew in a minute. So it's different. The word Elohim is used in Genesis 1. The word Yahweh is used in Genesis 2 and 3. And so right off, we have a little change. In the day, Yahweh. What is present in the story as the story begins? So if you took some time to look through this, well, there was no plant, and there was no herb, and there was no rain, right? And there was no one to till the ground. So now we have this vast, this desolate, dry earth is what's emerging. But a stream would rise and water the whole face of the ground. So there's a stream that's present in this story, right? And then it really quickly in verse 2:7 it went, then Yahweh formed man, Adam, from the dust of the ground. And there's a play on words there. Adamah, Adam. There's like a pun. It's very close to the word ground, the word for man. And breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living thing. So there's a lot to unpack there with just a short few verses. Who is present? So Yahweh is present, right? They don't have Elohim, the hosts, as they might refer to them in Genesis 1. And that's it. Yahweh. You've got dry land and a river. Okay, stream, river. And then if you refer back to Genesis 1, this goes to the last question on the page. God creates by speaking, and Elohim said, let there be light, right? And Elohim said, let the waters bring forth swarms of creatures. In this story, it's a little different. Then Yahweh formed man from the dust of the ground. So it's this down to earth. You have this aloof picture of Elohim right up above in the clouds creating. And now Yahweh is this down and dirty figure, like making out of clay and breathing in, it's almost like suscitating, like instead of resuscitating humans. And then Yahweh planted a garden. So then there's a garden appears. And there he put the man whom he had formed. So you're in the garden. And then Yahweh made every tree that's pleasant for sight and to grow out of the ground. So it's a little different imagery. And then we really quick in verse 10, we get into, like positions. Where is this Eden? We get Tigris and Euphrates, which are familiar to us. And Yahweh took the man, put him in the Garden of Eden to till it and keep it. Okay, so there's Yahweh, and there's man, and there's this garden, right? And there's this river that comes up. Okay. And then very curiously, this to me is the striking turning point that allows us to. This kind of shocked me when I was in school originally, and because it never really dawned on me what was happening, because I just kind of took it for granted, what I was taught, right? So look at the text very carefully. Again, they hadn't mentioned any animals in the text, right? And so then what happens? Yahweh said, it's not good the man should be alone. So I will make him a helper as his partner. Interesting. I thought humans, male and female, were created already, right? Genesis 1, I mean, we can go back, we can go look. It's humankind, Genesis 1:27, male and female, he created them. some cognitive dissonance. If you're having some dissonance, I had some dissonance with this. I will make him a helper as his partner. So out of the ground, Yahweh formed, and then it's not even like jumping right in with female, right? Yahweh formed every animal of the field and every bird of the air and brought them to the man to see what he would call them. So Yahweh is down on the ground, getting dirty, out of clay, making all these animals and birds. And then what happens? He brings them to Adam to see what Adam would call them. So it's almost like Adam has this big role in creation, right? Like in Genesis 2, there's a, let's see what, here you go, here, let me make you something, formed them, and see what you'll call them. And so it's almost like, I remember my professor teaching me this, and it's almost like this joke to like, okay, well, Yahweh's down here putting this thing together. What do you think of this, Adam? Man, Yahweh, that's a donkey. I mean, yeah, I call it a donkey, but it's not, I mean, it's not like a helper, because Yahweh's trying to make me a helper. It might help me like tote some stuff around, but that's not really a good helper. And then so Yahweh, okay, I'll do better. I'll do better. So Yahweh goes back, puts some things together, puts this thing out there. Hey, how about this? What do you think about this? Well, Yahweh, I mean, it's got the four legs again, and it's panting, and I'm gonna call that a dog. That's to me, I'm gonna call that a dog. And so, but I can kind of keep it around to help me watch these sheep and stuff, but it's not, it might be my best friend, but I don't know that it's not really a helpmate. It's not really something that's, flesh of my flesh, blood of my blood, right? It's not. So Yahweh goes back, what do you think about this? Oh, that's an eagle. And so it continues. So you can put yourself in the mind of hearing this oral story being told of Yahweh bringing these things to Adam to see what they were called. And so whatever the man called them, that was its name. And so Yahweh, I'm going to stick with that. This Adam guy, he's got something for, that vocabulary, and it's almost like this dude's a dictionary. I'm good. I'm good. I'm going to keep this. I'm going to keep it coming. What do you think? What do you think? And so finally, Yahweh, Adam gave names to all the cattle, all the birds of the air, and every animal of the field. But there was no helper. There was no partner. And so Yahweh's exhausted and Adam's exhausted. So finally Yahweh's, enough with this. I guess, I'm gonna have to use this material I used on this guy to come up with something to suit this guy. So reaches in there, grabs the rib, forms the woman, and then here comes Adam out of his sleep. This is at last the bone of my bones and the flesh of my flesh. This one here, we'll call this one woman. For out of Adam, this one was taken. And so it's this much different. It's this much, and I didn't really, you just kind of take it for granted, because it's just so ingrained from Bible school, Bible study, through, we just have all these fantastic images of Adam and Eve in the garden, and a lot of those we take for granted because it's been so formative in our culture, our Judeo-Christian culture. And so if you look at the text and what's really there, and you start really considering it, it starts to become a little troubling. And here, let me step into this. And before I get too far, I need to say this now. My intention is to build people's faith. My intention is to help people become better people, to become more enriched in their lives, more enriched in their understanding of God, more enriched in their understanding of the Bible. At this point in my, because I could kind of see what's happening a little bit. And I pray that you'll continue with me. I pray that you'll continue this journey with me, because there will be a lot more that emerge. Why is this dude trying to instill doubt? I'm not trying to instill doubt. I'm trying to instill knowledge for what's actually there, what's actually written, what's actually down in the Bible. When in doubt, go consult the actual text, what's there. And try to leave behind the rose-colored glasses that you bring to, to the study. And so if you actually look at and study what's there, this is what emerges. There's some differences. In Genesis 1, God referred to as Elohim. That's what it looks like written in Hebrew. In Genesis 2, God referred to as YHWH, YHWH. That's what it looks like. No vowels in Hebrew. In Genesis 1, we just read it. We know the order of creation. Again, I used to try to rectify this with, Big Bang. Light, dark, the dome, dry land, and all of a sudden there's trees and stuff. Day 4, sun and moon. Day 5, fish and birds. Day 6 is a big day. A lot of things created on day 6. And at the end of day 6, male, female. Genesis 2. In what order were things created? Well, strangely enough, here's Yahweh creating Adam. I would even put Yahweh walking around. I've got another image of Yahweh that's kind of more down, actually getting in dirt. And I'd also question my image with anybody else with heavenly hosts up there with that's just, to me, is a conglomeration of Genesis 1 and Genesis 2. There's Adam, there's a garden, right? And there's trees and stuff. And then there's all these animals. So Adam's created before the animals in Genesis 2. That's the big thing. The order of creation is he created them. He formed them out of the ground. And so you look at this, and you've got this image of God in Genesis 1 of this. There's the heavenly host from up above, creating by speaking. Let us make humankind in our own image, into our own likeness. So Elohim created humankind in says his image, but in the image of God, he created them male and female. That's our translation. Elohim is plural. Genesis 2:20, man is created before woman. And also, man is created before all the animals. In Genesis 1, the animals are created, and then men, and then man. And to every animal of the field, but for the man there was not a helper as his partner, so Yahweh caused a deep sleep to fall, took one of his ribs. And here's that picture of Yahweh getting down, like, I'm breathing the breath of life into Adam down here, pulling him out of the dirt. Maybe he's pulling his rib out at that point. It's like he's already got him formed. So there are a lot of differences. Let's take a look at these differences, because these become very important. These become fundamentally important as we move forward in the text and in our understanding. These are, I can't underestimate. It's hard. I can't overestimate the importance of this. So God's referred to as Elohim. Genesis 2, God referred to as Yahweh. Genesis 1, God creates by speaking, let there be light. God in Genesis 2 has a hands-on approach. Formed man and all the animals down here of the ground. In the ground, there's a garden growing. Planted a garden. Didn't say, poof, let there be a garden. Said, planted a garden. There's an aloof, majestic God that, you know, the image of God, imago Dei, emerges differently. There's an anthropomorphic, human-like, and emotional Yahweh. So this continues into Genesis 3, and we start to see some emotions, right, from Yahweh. And let's take a look at time. It's very clear there are 7 days to creation in Genesis 1. In Genesis 2:4, it's in the day. That's really where this story starts, in the day. It's non-specific, right? Or is it actually the day? Is it one day? Was it day 6? It doesn't, you know, if it was day 6, they need to rewrite Genesis 1, because again, the order of creation is not right. God creates humankind last in Genesis 1. God creates man, I'd say. I won't say humankind first, and then the animals. That's a big thing when you're looking at this. Look at what's there. Don't try to. So I'm certain there are people saying, well, it's an abstract concept and you don't understand. Take a look at what's there. I'm not trying to, again, take a look at what's there. You can assimilate this information, and if you assimilate the information, you'll probably be likely to just throw it away because this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. If it were just me trying to, I'm not a confrontational person. If you know me, I really like to get along with people. I wish, you know, there's a big part of me that's just, you know, wishes that it was like everything I've always taught when I was a little kid. That's just not Santa Claus, Easter Bunny. That's just not it. It's not what's there. It's not what's present in reality with what we have in front of us. When we look at and we get into the text, we read it in the languages it was written and put away our preconceived notions. There are different things that emerges. So please stick with me. I care about you. I don't want this to hurt your faith. If you stick with this, it will deepen your faith. There's this tohu vabohu, this watery chaos in Genesis 1. That's big. We'll carry this over. What's the water here? The earth existed, you know, in Genesis 2, and a stream watered the earth. So there was no rain. There's a stress, you know, according to everything of its kind, being fruitful and multiplying, setting aside the Sabbath as a sacred day. It's to me, it's like a more scientific approach in Genesis 1. In Genesis 2, it's more of an agrarian approach. It's more of stress on a human to keep the ground. It's this agricultural. There was no one there to till the ground. And so it's like this Genesis 2 had to be written by farmers, right? This has more of a scientific feel. And there's, you know, humankind created at the same time, man created before woman. So there are several very important details that emerge. This, if you follow me into the next video, we'll start to take a lot greater hold. At this point, I questioned my professor's belief in God. I honestly did. I thought this is some liberal atheist just trying to destroy my faith. He's part of this whole, you know, this is back in the early 90s. This isn't a new thing. This is back in 91. I remember leaving resentful. I remember leaving angry. What does this mean? Especially as I got into a little bit more. I remember a class that I took in seminary where I'd already sat with this information for 10 years. And there was an African-American gentleman who stood up, and he had been a preacher, and he had lived his whole life with a certain understanding of the Bible, had buried people, you know, as serving, you know, as far as their pastor and conducting funeral services and preached from a certain perspective. So there was a lot, he had a lot vested, as many Americans do, in this looking at a certain way that's handed to us without question. And so he stood up and he was very emotional. He said, "So are you telling me These are just stories? I want you to hold that. I want you to hold on to that thought. And I want you to hold on to that emotion, and please follow me into the next one because this will make more sense.